Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Katie Earle. I'm the coordinator of our University Express program, and I work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services. And we're joined here today with Dr. Patrick Welch. Thank you for being here, Doctor.
Thank you.
And to everyone who's here, we're so appreciative of your time. And since we do have some new folks, I'm quickly going to go over our housekeeping. We are recording this session and I will try to post it on our website in the near future. You've joined muted and without your video showing, and it's not because you've done anything wrong. Those are just the settings for our program today. And as Dr. Welch goes through his presentation, feel free to type any questions or comments you have in our Q&A panel. We'll try to get to as many as we can throughout his session. If you're on a computer, you can access your Q&A panel on the lower right-hand side of your screen. You just click on that to expand it. And if you're on a tablet or smartphone, touch your screen. That brings up your control panel, and you should be able to find your Q&A panel from there. So we hope you participate with us. We'd like to thank the sponsors of our program, which is our Department of Senior Services, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans for all their support. And as always, Senior Services is here to help you and your loved ones with whatever you need and however we can. We're at 858-8526. So let's learn about our speaker today. Dr. Patrick Welch started his military career at 17 when he enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps. While serving as an infantry squad leader in Vietnam, he was severely wounded in action and was hospitalized for 2 years, recovering from his wounds. Dr. Welch was an international hospitality industry executive for 48 years, has worked in over 50 countries, and has been a chief financial officer, chief operating officer, and chief executive officer and owner of several businesses. He has served as Director of Veteran Services for Erie County and as an adjunct professor at Damon College. In January of 2008, he became involved in the Buffalo Veterans Treatment Court as one of the first veteran mentors of the country. Now retired, he concentrates his efforts working with veterans involved in the criminal justice system with the Buffalo Veterans Treatment Court and Justice for Veterans. That's what we'll learn about today. Dr. Welch, thank you for being here. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thank you for inviting me. Good afternoon, everyone. For all of my fellow veterans out there, I want to acknowledge your great service to our country, and I want you to know how personally thankful I am for your service to our country. And if there are any of my fellow Vietnam veterans in the audience, welcome home. I'm glad you're here. So today we're going to talk about a Veterans Treatment Court and its founding in the first in the world in Buffalo, New York. So this statement is something that when I was being interviewed for a publication, I made to the writer, and it's kind of pegged to several things along the line. But what the Veteran Treatment Courts movement has done is made history in our criminal justice system. There has not ever been in the history of our country anything like this. And it all started right here in Buffalo, New York. Judge Robert Russell is known as the godfather of the Veteran Treatment Court movement. And I want to give you a little bit of history as to how this all started, because it's unique in that it was established with the help of 3 Vietnam veterans. Judge Robert Russell has been a city court judge for over 30 years and has done mental health courts and substance use court for about 28 of those years. He is also retiring at the end of this month after a great judicial career. So we're going to miss him very much. But in his mental health court in 2016, he had a Vietnam veteran who was not doing very well in his treatment programs, adhering to his appointments for counseling, etc. Judge Russell had a coordinator of his courts, late Hank Porowski, was a Vietnam Marine, and an Erie County employee who was the director of Medicaid, Jack O'Connor, who was an Army Vietnam veteran. And after a court session one day where this gentleman was not doing too well, Judge Russell asked Hank and Jack to go out and talk to him and see if they could get through to him. Well, in his next court session, that gentleman came into court, walked very distinctly and proudly up to the bar, went to parade rest, looked the judge directly in the eye, and responded to questions very eloquently and very vocally. After the session was done, Judge Russell called Hank and Jack over and said, "What did you guys do to him?" And it was nothing more than a couple fellow Vietnam veterans talking to a vet who, since he returned from Vietnam, had gone into isolation, which is things a lot of veterans do, had taken up drinking and drugs, which a lot of veterans wind up getting involved in. And that sparked Judge Russell to think about what had just happened. So over the course of 2007, he met with myself and many other veterans advocates in the community, some of whom may even be on this call today, and talked about his vision for a veterans treatment court. And at one meeting at the medical center director's office, where he gave us a presentation on this, every single veteran on the advisory council raised their hand and said, "How can we help?" Many of the times over that 2007 period, Judge Russell was accused of trying to create a get out of jail free card for veterans. And as I go through this presentation and tell you about what it takes, you're going to realize this is no get out of jail free card. What we offer a veteran who has become involved in the criminal justice system is an opportunity to make a choice. You can go to jail, or you can put yourself into a court-sponsored treatment program for for those items that got you into the criminal justice system. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is a picture of a traditional courtroom. You know, if anybody's ever been in a courtroom or seen them on TV, you got the judge sitting up here. You got the prosecutors sitting over here. You've got the defense here, and you got the jury over here. Well, in a veterans treatment court, and a lot of what I'm going to tell you is the Buffalo model, but it is followed by many of the courts around the country. The prosecution is not in the courtroom. The district attorneys in the areas where we have these veteran treatment courts have found so much faith in the treatment court program that their prosecutors don't even show up for court appearances. The only time they show up is when the person completes the program to agree to reduce or expunge the charges entirely. The defense can be either a private lawyer, or in our case, we have Legal Aid Bureau, who provides a public defender for the veterans, so they get legal counsel done for free. And instead of a jury over here, we have volunteer veteran mentors who are all military veterans who volunteer their time each and every week to come into court, to sit there and to mentor those individuals who are now involved in the criminal justice system. So what we call this is more of a veteran-centered approach. In a normal courtroom, you'd have the defendant here. So we've got a veteran in the middle. There are the judicial officers, the prosecution, the defense, the ancillary services that are normally offered in a community, the community treatment that is offered in the community normally, and then community supervision. What a veterans treatment court has in addition to that is the VA medical centers. VA provides individual treatment, has a veteran justice outreach specialist. This is a position that was created within the VA healthcare system that is an offshoot of the Veteran Treatment Court. Every medical center in this country has a veteran justice outreach employee or more that their sole job is working with veterans involved in the criminal justice system. They go into the jail holding centers every morning to look for any intakes that have been taken the night before. Those people that have self-identified as a veteran get immediate counseling and get immediate identification for all of the treatment and the processes that the VA can provide to them. And the other thing that no court in this nation has is a mentor component. We are people who are lay individuals who have military experience, and as I said, volunteer to come into court every single week for a session. We are not part of the judicial system. We are guests of each judge to be in their courtroom. This was another obstacle that we encountered when we established veteran treatment courts, because the professionals in the treatment courts, who are social workers, who are substance abuse counselors, were very much against bringing in a bunch of people who knew nothing about mental health counseling or substance use disorder, who were going to provide services to defendants in a criminal court. Veteran treatment court mentors have been called the secret sauce of what makes the treatment court movement so productive. And in terms of our beginnings in January 2008, today there are close to 700 veteran treatment courts in the United States that reach from the state of Maine all the way to the island of Guam. So the effectiveness of these programs has been proven over the last 13 years in terms of its successful rate. I'll give you one example that's a Buffalo-based rate. In New York State, recidivism is defined as a person who, once released from jail, is rearrested within a 2-year period. The New York State average in the civilian population is about 67%. Veteran treatment courts in New York State, and particularly in Buffalo, the recidivism rate is about 9%. So that shows you how well these programs work in returning veterans to a substantial part of the American dream of this country. The foundational principles of this, everybody who's involved from the clinical side and the treatment side has specific expertise. There are eligibility requirements, which I'll touch on. There are phases and milestones that they go through. There is accountability to the participant. This is not something that we coddle them and treat them in a blanket. They have accountability for their actions and their ability to complete this program. And then the key ingredient is the mentoring program. So here's an idea of what's involved in a veteran treatment court. Obviously, the judge, you see the community, law enforcement, defense counsel, a program coordinator, a prosecutor, a treatment representative, an evaluator, and the Veterans Administration and the Veteran Justice Outreach. This is not a normal court, because in a normal court, this function does not exist. So this is a component that's been added to it. The mentor component, as I mentioned, we are not a formal structure. We have no input directly to the judge. Any input that we garner from conversations with the participants is between us and the defendant. The only time, and we tell each participant in the court that if they talk about harming themselves or harming another, we will immediately get the court bailiff and they will be dealt with accordingly. New York State, as with most states today, are a duty to report state. And therefore, even though we're not a formal part of the court, as an individual, we are responsibility for that duty to report. As I mentioned, it's a separate entity. We have our own 501c3 foundation where we collect funds to be used in helping to support the participants in the program. As an example, if we have a veteran who comes in and there's first day of court, we determine that he is homeless. We have the capability to immediately, in conjunction with the VA and local providers, get them into an apartment within 24 hours. You cannot provide any kind of treatment, any kind of process for anyone unless they have a safe place to put their head at night. So we get them into an apartment so that they have that safe place. Then we work on providing them with a living space of their own at some point, and we would help with putting a security deposit down, paying the first month's rent, things like that. If they have furniture to move from one place to another, we will provide movers. We have a veteran-owned moving company that assists us in this process. We have a identified leader. This is not just a bunch of guys standing around in a courtroom doing anything we want to do. We have a formal structure. We have a mentor coordinator who, if you want to put it in military terms, is the staff NCOIC. And we are the NCOs that are serving under that NCOIC. That gives us the ability to liaise between the mentors and the components of the actual court. So when we're working with something, if we have an issue with them, we take that issue to our mentor coordinator, who would then go to the court staff to discuss the individual problem with that particular defendant. That information may or may not get to the judge. It will depend upon the court staff giving that information. We do not provide any direct information to the judge, to the district attorney, to anybody who is on the prosecutorial side of this environment. There is never the practice or impression that we have anything to do with the legal proceedings and the outcomes. We are, to these people who are participating in the program, a battle buddy, a pathfinder, a guide. We are there to make sure that they understand that the compact that exists between veteran to veteran is a sacred one, and we develop a trust with them. And as anyone knows, you can't provide any kind of support and help to someone unless there is a trust factor. You have to realize when these people come into court, they hate just about everybody. They hate the law enforcement officer that arrested them. They hate the judge. They hate the DA. They hate everybody in that room. We are the only ones, as mentors, offering a hand to assist them in their recovery. So standard eligibility requirements, pretty straightforward. You have to have served in the United States military, and you have to be found guilty of a criminal offense. When we first started out, the majority of our cases were misdemeanors and a small matter of felonies. We now have about 85 to 88% of our cases are felonies, which, if everyone is aware, once you have a felony and you get a conviction on your record, that is available to people that are looking to employ you, that is available for people looking to rent you an apartment. That can be a very, very derogatory mark on your personal history. And they must have a clinical diagnosis. So from the mental health side, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, anxiety, depression. From a substance use side, alcohol, drugs. So they need that clinical diagnosis, because that's why this is called a treatment court. Because of that diagnosis, we are going to put them into a treatment program. So here's some more things that go on when someone gets involved in it. The mentee or the participant is screened by professional staff to determine what their particular issues are. They are assessed for their quality of life needs. If they're homeless, we need to provide them a place to live. Their quality of life, if they don't have the funds to buy food. If they're not involved in treatment. We talk about three things in our court: people, places, and things. We need to get these participants away from people that are detrimental to their lifestyle, that are hanging around in the wrong places, and who are doing the wrong things. Peer pressure in an environment can be a very detrimental thing to people. So we need to get them away from the people, places, and things that may have led to their being involved in the criminal justice system. They get a case management. So for veterans that are eligible for Veterans Administration health care, they are put into a program of treatment at the Veterans Administration. Mental health, substance, whatever that may be. They're put into that program, and they have a case manager that reports regularly to the court. If they do not have VA health care, we have developed over the 13 years of this court program community providers who now work with us to provide those mental health or substance use needs for those particular individuals. The participant gets a contract that identifies what is expected of them and the case trajectory as to how you're going to go along, when you're going to hit various milestones. And everything that's done clinically or criminogenic is evidence-based. So, what goes on in a court? The progress is monitored in the first phase of a veteran's involvement with this in weekly court appearances. So that would put someone into what we call phase 1. Every single week, they're in the court. Reports are given to the court staff by the Veterans Administration on a weekly basis, so the court staff knows how the person is progressing in their treatment program. If they're in a private community provider, that same thing happens. There is a plan that is developed as they go through it, so they know what they're going to be like in court, what their expectations are. They prepare for their hearings. There is constant attendance by the team members. So not only do the participants have to know that they're going to be in court weekly or however their program is, but also the mentors that are involved in it. In our case in Buffalo, we've got about 160 participants in our court program. We've got a group of about 45 mentors. So we've divided those 45 mentors into 3 squads of 15. And so a mentor is obligated to come once every 3 weeks. We do not have one-to-one counseling or mentorship with any of these people because we just don't have the numbers. And staffings are closed. And this is an important aspect that we've found to be very important. Before every court session, the judge meets with his court staff. He meets with the public defender. He meets with probation. He meets with any other people that are involved in the cases that will be presented that day in court. We as mentors do not participate in those staffing because, as I mentioned earlier, what goes on in conversations between the participant and we mentors is confidential unless they tell us that we can release that information to court staff. If the confidentiality clause is broken between a participant and a mentor, we're not going to have very good success. So it is critical that we maintain that confidentiality at all costs. So I mentioned before, is this a get out of jail free card? This is an example of what the participant is required to do. Comply with treatment, with supervision. If they get community service because they've gotten off the rail, they get 30 to 40 hours of community service. If they're in a state where they can be working on getting a job, we have job services that assist them in getting employment. The phase advancement, as they get better, as they show accountability, as they show compliance, that attendance from every week is moved into another phase, which may then go to every other week. Into the next phase of their improvement and their recovery, it may go to every 3 weeks. And once they're into the final phase, showing that they've been accountable for all of these things, they may then only be showing up once a month. But in the meantime, reports are still provided to the court staff. They have to pass tox tests. They have to have clean time. Average person in our court will spend 18 months with us. So we've had some veterans who say, well, you know, I'll take the 30 or 60 days in jail instead of 18 months. And we say, that's fine if that's what you want to do, and you will have a felony conviction on your record. So we're going to give you the opportunity to spend at least 18 months with us and not have a felony on your record. What's your choice? Some of them are put into curfews where they have to be home at a certain period of time. Many of them have scram devices on them so that they can be tracked. They have to get training, improving their education. And we provide assistance with getting them into drug-free, pro-social activities. As I mentioned, people, places, and things. We need to get them away from the people that are responsible many times for getting them into the situation they're in, and getting them in touch with people that are not having issues. One of the local programs is Team Red, White, and Blue, which is a membership veteran organization that is open to anyone. And they are very, very family oriented. And many of our veterans are married. So we want to get them into areas where they're doing with pro activities that make things better. I mentioned phases and milestones. So I went through the structure and I talked about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. We have a 4-phase program. Some courts have a 5-phase program. But they are made aware as they progress through the system by giving them the ability to report fewer times, but with restrictions on what they do. This journey that they are through in their recovery does not mean when they complete this program, they're done. This is just a phase of their recovery towards well-being. The only way we know that we're successful is if they're not winding up in the criminal justice system again. And therefore, we need to make sure that there's follow-up in the recovery process. So the courts program itself follows up with people at 90-day intervals, at 6 months intervals, 9-month intervals. So they keep in touch with them to make sure that there's no particular issues and they're not falling behind in what they're trying to do. And as you can see, it's an incremental progress to move them through this, to make them feel better about themselves, to make them understand that they can get rid of these demons that are haunting and destroying their lives. How does someone complete the program? Well, they can quit. They cannot comply with the system, and then they're going to jail. It's pretty straightforward. Or they can proceed along the way for graduation, recognition, or completion, whatever word you want to use. As I mentioned, our average person takes about 18 months to get through the program. In the Buffalo court, we have had some people with us for as long as 4 years. Judge Russell has not been one to give up on his veteran participants. He believes in the service and sacrifice that they have given to this country, and he has done everything in his power to help them get through this program. They need to be sober and in recovery. So as an example, they have to be a minimum of 6 months clean and sober. If they have a bad tox, in most cases, the clock starts over. So again, not a get out of jail free card. You don't comply with the program that you're in, there are consequences for it. And again, the last thing is sustained behavioral and medical health after the completion. So this triangle gives you an idea of where the mentors sit in the whole process. You got the legal on the other side, you got the treatment needs, and you got the mentors who, as I mentioned, are the secret sauce of what makes this whole thing work. They are volunteers. So we have some current military people that are full-time reservists or full-time National Guard people that serve. We vet a mentor. When someone approaches us and would like to serve as a mentor and proves that to us that they're a veteran, it doesn't automatically mean that they start mentoring people. We have a structure that they have to go through. They have to fill out an application. They have to agree to a background check. We put them through a course of study that has been developed by Justice for Vets that talks about what the role of a mentor is. There's like 10 sessions of about 12 minutes each, talking about what the role is, how we go through and provide the mentoring services that we do, understanding more about PTSD and TBI so that you've got a way to talk. And one of the most critical components in a mentor is listening. You have to be able to listen to their story. There's about 18 million veterans in this country right now. That means there's about 18 million different stories. Each one of us has our story. As a mentor, it is not my job to one-up a participant or tell them my story unless it fits into their story. We are there to ask questions, to take whatever it is they want to give us and let them talk and let us listen. One of the greatest parts of being a mentor is the ability to listen and be empathetic and be supportive of that person who has not been as fortunate. I will tell you that in our court, and in most treatment courts that I visited around the country, most of the Vietnam veterans that are in the court have PTSD or anxiety or depression issues. So we have a better understanding of what the people are going through. Here's what a typical volunteer veteran mentor looks like. You can read those yourself, but you can see individual connections. We get a lot of mentors through gyms, through the VA volunteer services area, faith-based organizations. What we have seen across the country is there was a movie out many, many years ago. I forgot the name of it, but it was basically the words, if you build it, they will come. And what we have found across the country in the, again, approximately 700 courts now, is once the announcement is made that a veteran treatment court has been established, mentors in the community come out and want to provide help to their fellow veterans. Our motto in the veteran treatment court movement is leave no veteran behind. These are some of the attributes of successful mentors. Always working to build rapport. Rapport and trust is critical in the work that we do. Have an understanding of boundaries. It's another critical thing. As a mentor, you don't give them cash. You don't buy them things, unless it's a cup of coffee or maybe a lunch or a dinner. You have specific boundaries that you are bound to by the contract that you sign with us as a volunteer veteran mentor. It is very important to understand those boundaries. I'll give you one example, and this is I can't make this stuff up. We had a male mentor who was mentoring a female veteran, and they started coming into court holding hands. Not a good thing. They were developing a personal, intimate relationship that is not within the boundaries of what a mentor does. So again, we police ourselves and make sure that these type of things don't happen. We always talk about the 3 E's: engage, encourage, and empower. So when we're talking about engaging with our mentee, available, dependable, and listen and ask questions. In the community, to make sure the community understands what a veteran treatment court is and how we're helping veterans get their lives back together, and engaging with the court to make sure that the court personnel understand more. I run military culture 101 classes periodically for court staff, for people in the community, for people in the insurance companies, and so on, that give them a basic overview of military culture, so they get a little bit better understanding of who we are, what we go through, and the sacrifices that we make to serve our country. Encouraging. You need to constantly, with the mentees, be positive, making sure that they understand the participation in the things that will help them get through the court again and in the community. And empowering. One of the biggest things that someone has that's been brought in to the criminal justice system is their loss of power to dictate what goes on in their life. We have to work with them to try and get them to empower themselves again and develop traits and practices that give them back some of the power in their life to determine their future. With the court, again, the understanding of the veterans, connecting the courts with service organizations so they can see more. And again, in the community to raise those support issues. I mentioned about the mentor coordinator. Jack O'Connor was the veteran director of Medicaid. That is our coordinator now, and was one of the people in the original formation of the court system. Overseeing the aspects of mentor, I talked about making sure that the mentors are informed of their duties when their sessions come up, are kept appraised of training opportunities to make them better mentors in working with their participants. And we're constantly working to improve what we do. Jack and I travel the country, training other courts and other court staffs, and the establishment of veteran treatment courts in the roles of mentors and mentor coordinators. There is a specific handbook that was developed to lay out so people understand their roles and what their participation is. So this just gives you a little basic organizational chart. The VTC program coordinator is the court staff. So we have a mental health coordinator and we have a substance use coordinator. The mentors are down at the bottom. Any interactions that we need to have to advocate on behalf of our veteran go through the mentor coordinator, who then disseminates that information to the court appointed staff. I mentioned about the handbook, which lays out mentor responsibilities and all of these things. Well documented. It's not something that we have and we just verbalize these things. This program has been developed over the years, particularly with the assistance of Justice for Veterans, which is an organization of the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. They have taken a very, very active participatory role in this, and they are the ones that contract with Jack and I to go around the country training people. That is an overview of what a veteran treatment court is all about. I hope I've confined myself to the appropriate time, Katie.
You absolutely have, Dr. Welch, and we have quite a few questions here, some of which you answered, but still more.
Okay, good.
Thank you for all of that. So if it's okay with you, we'll jump right into questions.
Okay.
All right, so the first one I'm seeing is, how does somebody get their case into this treatment court?
All right, when a person is arrested and brought into the holding centers, they can meet with that veteran justice outreach person that comes into the jail and gives them that initial orientation. The way that a person gets into the court is through their attorney or the judge that they are in front of. So as an example, we've had cases from Springville. So down in Springville, they don't have a veterans treatment court. So the VJO or the participant's private attorney can ask the judge if he would transfer the case to the Buffalo Veterans Treatment Court. Now, the way that happens is Judge Russell does not hold the case. The participant's actual case is still held by the Springville judge. Our participation in it is strictly to monitor the treatment program for them. And when they successfully complete the treatment court program, Judge Russell would then refer that back to the judge in Springville for adjudication of the case.
Okay, thank you for that. Then there's actually a follow-up question a couple down, but would a family court case ever be able to be transferred, or is it only criminal?
No, it is strictly criminal court.
Okay, thank you. The next question I'm seeing is, what ages are you seeing in this court, and are there more men or more women, or equal?
More men, although the female side of it is growing in accordance with the increasing veteran or military population of females. So that is growing. The age group, what we're seeing right now is predominantly war on terror veterans. So it's going to be in that, that age group anywhere from 18 to 45 or so in there. We have had Vietnam veterans in the program, and we have had Korean War veterans in the program.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question that I'm seeing is, do you ever have graduates become mentors?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I'll give you an example that has just taken place. We have a veteran who was a participant in the court, got through the program in about 15 months. If someone who completes the program wants to be a mentor, we usually have a minimum of a 6 to 9 month waiting period to make sure that they continue in their recovery and their sobriety and clean. We invite them to come in if they want to sit in the gallery and watch the court and see more about what we're doing. And then they can apply to be a mentor. We also have across the country, and we just did it here in Buffalo, a young man who completed our program, who became a mentor. He has now become the president of our foundation and has been promoted to the Veteran Treatment Court coordinator. So the success of these people in the completion and their desire to give back to their fellow veterans is prevalent. I've got a very good Marine Corps friend of mine in Philadelphia who went through as a participant, a mentor. He now has a full-time job in the Philadelphia court system as a Veteran Treatment Court mentor coordinator. So we encourage it very highly because, in our opinion, we can't have a better mentor than someone who has gone through the program and been a recipient of the benefits of that program.
It's definitely really powerful experience. I'm sure people appreciate. The next question is still about mentors. How do mentors help the vets outside of the courtroom? Do they meet weekly or monthly?
All right. So in the Buffalo court, and again, I use us because each court does it a bit differently. But in the Buffalo court, after a participant has appeared before the judge and they've been given a new report date, I, as a mentor, leave the courtroom with them and go outside and have not outside the courtroom and have my confidential conversation with them so that we are not within the courtroom walls in the event that anything that is normally said, because all of these proceedings are recorded. So we want to make sure nothing gets on the record in our discussions with the participants. And as far as meeting with the participants, it's an individual mentor thing. I've had occasion where, I invite them out for a cup of coffee, talk to them. Some mentors have taken them to a baseball game, keeping them away from the beer. Those $7 beers that you pay for, we keep them away from those things. But, it's a mentor by mentor feeling as to how they wish to participate. As I mentioned at the outset, we do not have the ability to do one-on-one counseling all the time, but some of us have, to a degree, adopted some of the ones that we like to work with the most. So it does happen, but as I mentioned, no money, no payment of bills, none of that. You're just a battle buddy helping them.
Thanks for that, Dr. Welch. I'm seeing one final question here, and that's, how has COVID impacted your program participants?
Very, very dramatically, obviously. When the COVID shutdown came in March of last year, the court's program was not set up, or was not allowed, obviously, as many were, to have people coming in mass participation. And they had not gone through and established any technology methods. So for a period of about March, April, May, about 3 months, there was no court appearances. The New York State court system finally got itself set up to do Skype, and we started having virtual court sessions on Skype. So if you were assigned for an appearance on a particular Tuesday, you'd log into Skype, and it obviously would all be virtual. The state's now more sophisticated. We use Microsoft Teams now. And so, we have those sessions. So it's not ideal. The person to person is always the best method of working with people, but the technology has at least allowed us to maintain some contact with the participants, allowed the judge to see their faces, because you can tell a lot by a person's face if they're still drinking or doing drugs or whatever it is. So that's at least an important piece of the visual experience. Our understanding right now, and nothing is permanent, but that probably within the next 2 months we'll be going back to actual court sessions.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Welch. I'm not seeing any, oh, okay, a question just came through. This is, can families come to court?
Yes. Yes, and in fact, it's encouraged, because one of the things these people need is a support network. And we view it favorably as the mentor standpoint, to see that the mother and the father, or the husband and the wife, are there in support of their veteran who's going through this program. And we also get a lot of insight from the family as to what the participant may tell the judge, which may not be all of the story. But once we get out of the courtroom and start talking to the participant and the family, we will sometime learn a little bit more about it. So one example I'll give you that it brings many of us to an emotional ebb is that when we've had a participant come into court the first time, and they're homeless, they're disheveled, they have nothing. They've alienated themselves from their family and their friends. And on their date of recognition, 18 months later, their spouses, their parents, their children are all standing there in the courtroom with them. So one of the aspects that wasn't thought about when we started, we're not only saving the life of a veteran, we're saving the life of the families. And that's a very, very powerful and emotional point in their recovery process, not only for them, but for us too.
Absolutely. We have somebody that just put in, graduations must be proud.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, have I got a few minutes yet?
Yeah, you do. And this person's asking if you can even further describe graduation day, if you will.
All right. So what happens on their date of graduation is they appear before the judge, obviously. The district attorney's office will appear at graduation many times, saying they are allowing this veteran to remove their plea of guilty to the felony and registering a plea of guilty to a misdemeanor or a violation. In some cases, the record is totally expunged. That's the carrot that's been held out for participating in the program. The public defender will give their comments on how the person's progressed through the program. The coordinators of the court, whether it's the mental health coordinator or the substance coordinator, will give their presentation on how the person's proceeded through the program. The judge will give a speech. then we veteran mentors go up with the veteran. And for those people that are in the military, they understand the importance of the military challenge coin. And we have a Buffalo Veterans Treatment Court challenge coin, as do all the other courts around the country. And we present our challenge coin to that participant. In the military, getting a challenge coin from a superior enlisted or officer is a deep sign of respect and admiration for accomplishments that you have done. And that is the token in which we give them their challenge coin and express to them to understand the hard work that they had to put through to achieve this level of recovery, and that they should always have the coin with them in the event that they start to falter or feel that they're slipping back into something, to grab that challenge coin and understand all the work that they put into achieving that. And hopefully that will prevent them from relapse.
I'm sure they welcome that. We have somebody who's wondering if, does the average defendant leave with expunged, violation, or misdemeanor?
For the most part, they leave with a misdemeanor or a violation.
Thank you, Dr. Welch.
My pleasure.
I'll give it another couple seconds here to see if anybody else has any other questions before we close. But otherwise, Dr. Welch, thank you so much for this really informational presentation and for all you do and for your service. This is incredibly important work. I'm glad it
Thank you
started in
very much.
Buffalo.
I appreciate the opportunity. And again, to everyone who still may be out there as veterans, thank you again for your service to our country.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm just seeing a couple thank yous. Thank you for this presentation and thank you for spending your afternoon with us. So.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Dr. Welch. I'll connect with you offline.